Saw
of
that one.
making fun of the guy, but you're making fun of the guy.
I used to make fun of Rush too. I used to
Yeah,
think the music was okay.
I
I
love
still think the music. I wasn't like a big Rush fan. I really didn't see the appeal. But a lot of people in my group were very big Rush fans. So I
Oh
said, all
yeah,
right.
yeah. Some are diehard.
I always love the trees. It's one of my favorites.
The only one I remember is that Tom Sawyer song.
Well, that's
That's
their
the
monster
popular one.
hit. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. See, I don't know anything about that
I
band.
know Closer to the Heart too.
Oh, here it is. I'll copy this link address and put it in this one. There's the movie review for the movie he did. It's called Rock and Roll Nightmare. I'll put it in the chat room too.
Brandon's cult movie review. Oh, that's just
That's the
channel.
guy.
Okay.
He does a lot of cult movies. It's interesting because his YouTube page has been like yanked twice because he was, I guess, posting clips from
Oh,
the movie,
I
and they
remember
weren't
going
even long
around
clips.
with Scott Sigler about this because he wanted to do a movie trailer show on YouTube. He's like, "How can I do it legitimately?" He wanted me to ask Eileen, and Eileen's like, "It's not. I don't work in that area, so I can't really tell you, and it's not obvious how to do that.
Yeah,
I know
And
it
it's
can be done because there's people doing it.
and it's not like he's putting the whole movie or even like the
No,
best
it's
friends. These
fair.
are all
It's the definition of fair use. It's commentary. It's
yeah.
repurposing. It's not undermining the marketplace or the original. Like, it is certainly fair use, but there's just no mechanism for determining fair use because fair use is very squishy. It's not very algorithmic. Welcome to our discussion. Fair use is very squishy.
I would like to get him on if we ever do fair use because it'd be interesting. He has that. He also has to cover because all of the movies he does has bare women's breasts, so he has to cover them up, or they also get yanked.
Yeah, that's a different issue. Well, it is. It's not a copyright issue. It's
No,
a
I understand. It's
standards
just
and practices issue. Although that kind of thing doesn't get caught by the bot, like Content ID. That kind of thing is reported by viewers, I think.
but he
Fair
also
use
does.
has a squishy posse.
He did all the Turkish knockoff movies, the Turkish Superman.
Oh, you're a huge fan of those. I know.
Oh my God, they're great.
I think
They're
you
hilarious.
introduced me to those, actually.
So hilarious.
Knockoff is a pejorative term. Are you sure that's the term you want to use, Roger?
Giorgio. So wait, is he Greek? He's Swiss-born Greek-Austrian writer. He just
Wow.
looks
Who
like
is?
he should. No, the ancient astronauts guy.
Oh, that guy. We're still talking about him.
Yeah, sorry. He just totally looks like someone you'd meet at Comic Con.
still that old chestnut.
That all that's just done.
Yeah.
These halos, they're helmets. These flaming chariot spaceships.
This England. These astronaut-shaped helmets, these flaming chariot ships, this England.
I wanted to do not do, but if there was ever a movie, I wanted an opportunity to do like a movie. I wanted to do one where you could literally drop, where you would have ancient astronauts or not aliens. What I'm calling ancient astronauts, aliens come to Earth and literally cull humanity every few centuries, not because they're breeding us or anything, but because they need soldiers to fight their wars, and so every now and then they
Kind of a
just
twist on Old Man's War by John Scalzi, actually.
it would be basically a recruit,
Yeah.
but like eventually they get to our generation, we're just totally screwed in the head, and they don't know what they get, and hilarity ensues. It would
Our
be a
generation?
comedy.
You mean old people?
Our generation, old people,
The old.
Older people.
older people. I like it. It sounds a lot like elder,
Yeah.
but not too
Ancients of
D&D.
Mumu is my favorite.
Ancient biological creatures.
The ABCs, ancient biological creatures.
That's actually Alien Big Cat in Britain, ABCs.
Ah.
That was another. See, if you don't know this underground stuff, you'll totally miss it. So back in the
Wait,
70s,
hold on. That is the most pretentious thing you've said all day. If you don't know this underground stuff that only I'm aware of, then you'll miss all my references that I'm making to the underground stuff that I'm only aware of.
that's the very. Yeah, I don't understand what your point is, Tom. No, seriously, because back in the '60s or it was the '70s and '80s, there was a minor phenomenon called the ABCs, alien big cats, where people reported seeing large
Oh, really?
predatory.
That's a real thing, huh?
Yeah,
Nice.
and originally people thought, well, it's just an animal that escaped the zoo or something like that.
Well, now we know that it's magical creatures that weren't properly protected by the Ministry of Magic.
See? Where to find them?
Ancient astronauts.
All right. Are you ready to rumble?
I'm
Oh,
ready.
give me control while you're at it.
Oh, crap. Will do.
I'm totally ready. I like this
Here
hot breaking news red bit you do at the top. I like that.
You like that?
Yep.
I don't plan to do it.
Last week it happened kind of the same way. It was like a breaking.
Yeah.
You just stuck it in there, but I just like the idea of it.
All right, here we go. I should record probably. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't know, man. Podcasting.
This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, July 6, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, as he does most Wednesdays, Mr. Scott Johnson of the Frog Pants Network. How are you, Scott Johnson?
I'm fantastic. Beep, boop, beep. I was not programmed to love. I'm here, and I love it because Wednesdays are great, and we get to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. Some people say, look, how do you even deal with Wednesdays? Because that's slow tech news day. And I say to them, nay. We have some of the best conversations I've ever had about tech.
Yeah, in fact, today is not a slow tech news day. We're going to talk about Snapchat just ditching ephemerality. They're like, nah, I know that's how we built ourselves, but you can store everything in the cloud now. That's coming up in a little bit. Silent Circle's Chief Strategy Officer Vic Hyder told Ars Technica regarding the removal of its warrant canary page, quote, "We have not received any warrants, and we do not expect any, since we have so little information available." Now here are some more top stories. Google announced new updates to Now on Tap for users of Android Marshmallow. When you long press the home button on any screen in any app, you'll now get an option to translate this screen. That's how Google Now on Tap works. And then translate this screen is one of the new options. It's available for phones with languages set to English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. There's a new Discover mode that lets you stream a bunch of visual content related to what's on your screen. So you can get, for instance, YouTube videos and pictures of Pluto if that's what you happen to be looking at. And you can now scan barcodes and QR codes to get info cards related to that object.
I think that sounds awesome, especially the translation thing. I would love to be able to do that more simply, and it sounds like, I mean, certainly Android's an ecosystem that will support this better, but I wouldn't mind seeing this integrated in some of the Google apps on iOS. I'd like to see Chrome on iOS perhaps have this sort of built into it. I don't know if that's coming or if that's planned at all, but this sort of thing.
No, it's in Chrome already. The advance here is that I don't have to be in Chrome. I can just be in an app. And if all of a sudden the app shows me something in Korean, I can long press and be like, boom. I don't know. Actually, it should say that. I don't know if Korean works. But if it shows me something in German, I can long press and it'll change it to English for me.
Well, then clearly I am not using Chrome the way I should be. I did not know that was an option.
Not on Android. Maybe you're just not using Android the way you should be.
That's true. A lot of friends would tell me that. After a beta period starting in May, Pokemon Go, I say that with some emphasis because there is an exclamation point there. The augmented reality mobile game has arrived in the Android and iOS app stores. The initial rollout, that began in New Zealand, as it often does. That's usually sort of the cold launch. And will continue to different markets over the next few days. The game was developed by Niantic Labs. This is not Nintendo, obviously, and is actually a company spun off by Google in 2015.
Or the Pokemon Company, which, by the way, is not the same as Nintendo.
No, it's not. A lot of people.
So Niantic is neither the Pokemon Company nor Nintendo, either one.
Yeah, it's easy to conflate them all. I mean, I kind of get why people do, but there's actually a lot of different sort of cookie jars with people's hands in them. But yeah, this is an exciting moment because even though we're not talking about a Nintendo Prime game, and we have some other stuff to say about Nintendo later in the mobile space, a lot of people still see it as, another foray into mobile gaming from a place that we normally don't, doesn't seem to have much interest in mobile gaming. And so as much as I want to just pin this right on Nintendo's donkey, it's important to remember that it's not really them, though it does benefit them, I think.
Yeah, they're involved in it. And I think in addition to being a slice of the Nintendo mobile strategy, it's also a really interesting game because if you don't realize it, the way it works is you go out into the world and you find the Pokemon out in the real world. In fact, It's hit Australia and Japan now, as well as New Zealand. And already in Australia, a police station in Darwin has put out an advisory. In fact, I should read this. For those budding Pokemon trainers out there using Pokemon Go, whilst the Darwin police station may feature as a Pokestop, please be advised that you don't actually have to step inside in order to gain the Pokeballs. It's also a good idea to look up, away from your phone, and both ways before crossing the street. That sand shrew isn't going anywhere fast. Stay safe and catch them all.
Do you think, I mean, there had to have been a response from some people who had to have gone in there, right? Like, if they didn't know anybody was going in, they wouldn't have probably issued the warning. So somebody somewhere thought, well, I've got to go in the station.
They probably had more than one, like, walking in saying, hey, I'm looking for the Pokemon. And they're like, you're cluttering up our lobby, which is probably not the best place for you to be right now.
Yeah, and Reddit and the internet are already rife with strange locations, physical locations for lots of people's Pokemon that they are finding. So there is no shortage of good stuff coming out of New Zealand and shortly a town.
Well, Australia, by the way, is shout out to our co-contributor Peter Wells. Your country is doing us proud with the memes as well. In New Zealand, no shortage there. But Pokemon on the Barbie is now something that I have seen. I think my favorite one is the dog that's taking a dump, and the Pokemon just happens to show up right under the dog.
Yeah, well done, augmented reality. You are truly making our lives better.
Facebook launched Open Cellular today with the aim of bringing more affordable wireless access through an open source hardware and software platform. Platform tries to use already available infrastructure as much as possible to keep the hardware to a minimum, keep the cost low. It has two main subsystems, one for general purpose and baseband computing, and that's the one that takes advantage of already existing infrastructure, but there's also one for radio packed into it. So even if the backhaul were to go down, the people on the network that is created by this would still be able to communicate, which could be useful in disaster situations. The whole thing is fit into a backpack-sized container that measures 19.5 by 8.5 by 4.5 inches. They're designed to handle extremes of wind temperature and other harsh conditions, so you can put them up on poles and it can rain on them. Telecom operators, entrepreneurs, researchers, and OEMs can make free use of the designs, and the software is going to be donated to the Telecom Infra Project. Telecom Infra Project, or TIP, is another Facebook-backed organization who's dedicated to making this sort of infrastructure freely available to people. And so they will be the ones monitoring or maintaining the open source of both the design of the hardware and the firmware and software that runs it.
So it's still, I mean, these kinds of maneuvers by Facebook, it's easy to look at them and wonder what the catch is. But what this seems like to me, once again, is another example of a pretty good idea, in fact, a great idea, pretty helpful thing in theory, and once we see these things up and around, seems like it's going to be a really good thing. And then the added benefit is, I suppose, more people on Facebook one day. I guess that's what they're getting out of it, but beyond that, it's hard to knock this. I think it's a really cool initiative.
Yeah, it is definitely in their best interest to bring more people online. That is why Google does this sort of thing too. In fact, that's why they got into Google Fiber, was not so much that they wanted to invent a new ISP, but they wanted to show that you could roll out ISPs with higher speeds to people, because the more people that do it, the more people use Google. So it's the same thing with Facebook. But whatever their selfish reasons may be, I think this is the right way to do it. You make a low-cost package, you make it freely available to anybody in the world, and you're going to see all kinds of unintended benefits of that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that pans out. Google has acquired Paris company Moodstocks. That's what we call Patrick sometimes on the weekends. These guys develop machine learning image recognition for smartphones. Moodstocks will discontinue its API and SDK and build an image recognition tool and tools within Google. Current paying Moodstock subscribers will be able to use the product until the end of their subscription. So there you go, another company sucked into the machine.
Yeah, well, yeah, and the machine learning, right? Everybody is trying to figure out this image recognition play. It's interesting to see them all doing it. Twitter bought Magic Pony, which does very similar things. Difference is Moodstock's been around since, I think, something like 2008. And they had a viable product that they were supporting. So they are now being sucked inside the Google machine. And I read one, I think it was the TechCrunch article, said that they are often called the Shazam of images, because you can hold up an image to their technology and it will be able to recognize it. Say, oh, well, I know what that is. And so this could definitely help not only in search, but you can search by image, which Google can already do, but it can improve that. Everybody is everybody, all of the tech companies that provide you these sort of services that benefit from being able to come up with the right image are looking for better ways to do that. Snapchat's involved in this too. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah. Also, I hate to say it, but maybe the best manifestation on the consumer level of machines recognizing stuff is face swapping in silly apps. Like that's actually a thing that works and works pretty well, and it knows where a face is and what to put on top of it. And I could be crazy, but if I would have told you 10 years ago that we could do that with a little device in our hands, you probably would have laughed at me.
Yeah. Netflix officially announced Tuesday a deal to bring CW shows to its platform 8 days after the season ends. This is one of the quickest turnarounds, so you don't get in-season shows, but just 1 day longer than a week after the series finale, you will be able to watch the entire previous season on Netflix. CW's deal with Hulu will expire this autumn, which is previously how a lot of people were watching in-season stuff. They also had a deal previously with Netflix that also expired, but this new deal replaces that. Viewers will have to use CW's apps and website to access shows online while the season is ongoing. And in a separate deal, Netflix agreed with Comcast to install the Netflix app on Comcast's X1 set-top boxes. So those two have made friends again after having their big interconnection dispute.
Yeah, what a funny little marriage that is. After the kind of the problems that were going back and forth, but I guess that's good. I mean, I have no need for it, and I have Comcast, but really just for internet, and and Netflix is essentially on everything. So why would Comcast want to fight against that wave? I suppose, but sure, why not? It's more interesting to me that I hear this about CW and being able to watch those shows. Maybe not in season, but a week after the season ends. It's actually kind of intriguing to me because I'll get kind of a binge experience like I do with Netflix currently with their shows, but I may have to wait a little bit, and that's probably okay because we always talk about this embarrassment of riches. There's so much to watch that I could schedule it out and say, well, I'm cool not watching Flash in real time, so I'll watch the Flash when it's done. Because in the meantime, I got to catch up on these 3 other shows that are now out and available. So I don't have a problem with this. This sounds good.
Oh, man, I do. I have a problem with this. This is a sad day for me. And it's probably just me. But as a test case, I'll show you why this is different. It's different for different people. And I think that's interesting that you're like, these weren't things I needed to watch right away anyway. It's fine. Which is kind of what Netflix is counting on, and CW is counting on, hey, we may have a better chance of monetizing this way for people like Scott than we would of forcing them into some other Hulu-like arrangement. But I record these shows like Arrow and Flash over the air. By the way, Supergirl is coming to CW this season, so it's not going to be on CBS, so that's another one in here. And I liked watching them on Hulu anyway. If I didn't need to see it live or right away, I would just wait the next day in Hulu because I didn't have to press a button to skip through commercials, right? Because I pay for the commercial-free version of Hulu. Now, I'll have to go to the CW app, which has commercials that I won't be able to skip, or I'll just have to wait and do it on TiVo, which now it has that little thing if you watch it like within a half hour or more after it airs, you can press one button and skip through the commercials, which is great, but it's still... And I know this is just whiny complaining, but it's still one more button. I loved the Hulu experience. It was like the perfect DVR. I just watch everything without commercials, and it was easy to find it. It would always show up like, here's your next episode.
Yeah, I say as excited as I am for the idea that they could strike a deal, I should actually be sad because I am a Hulu subscriber as well, and I prefer that experience when it comes to TV shows on Hulu. So you're right. I'm going to have an extra button, or at the very
I wasn't trying to talk you into being sad.
No. It's funny, though, because it just really depends on what you're used to. If you're a Netflix guy and that's all you care about, this is probably just fine. This probably sounds great. In fact, for all you're concerned, you're getting a brand new awesome deal happening over there at your favorite streaming service. But for Hulu people, we're just kind of scratching our heads and going, oh, no. But it happens on both sides. Netflix will lose a contract with somebody. They'll go off and do their own thing, and suddenly we're missing 50 movies we used to get and that were always up there as perennial, experiences. So, man, just a large reminder that the streaming world's still trying to get its feet.
Yeah, and I guess there's a side note I hadn't thought of until you were just saying that. Amazon has struck a deal with Warner Brothers today to get like 33 of those movies, like Father of the Bride and Space Jam, are going to come to Amazon Prime. So those won't be anywhere else. Those will only be on Amazon Prime. And as they divide up this landscape, one of the other things that channels want to take control of is that experience of watching things right away. So CW leaving Hulu for the in-season replays is a big deal because they're hoping to force people to go install that CW app where they can control the entire experience, monetize all the video, get the user data themselves rather than working in partnership with somebody else.
Yep, that's true. Well, I'm just excited about your Space Jam news. Moving on.
That's good news.
During a recent recent investors meeting Q&A session, Nintendo's general manager of entertainment planning and development, Shinya Takahashi, look at that, look at these, look at me, said this, quote, "Physical controllers for smart device applications are available in the market, and it is possible that we may also develop something new by ourselves," unquote. I'm emphasizing this because it's kind of a big deal if it's true. He went on to say that they're still looking into how to make a good action game controlled by touchscreen. While they squeeze their way into mobile in various ways, this is exciting to me because I think Nintendo maybe knows this better than anybody, but tactile controllers where you have real buttons and the feeling of actual movement in a more mechanical way than a touchscreen, I think really matters to them. And if it matters enough to them, they could, in theory, make a device that is even just a throwback to a Super Nintendo controller or something. Some old controller everyone loved, or not. If something brand new is fine. But the idea that Nintendo, one of the front runners of advancing controller technology in the past, they brought us the first true analog stick. They brought us all kinds of stuff. And all you people with your Sega Saturn version of Knights, I know that was an analog stick. I'm not talking about that. But the point is, like, they will change the way people use controllers. If they do that in mobile, forget about this being some weird niche business where MiFi controllers are kind of a thing that exists. This may take this from like Diamond Rio to iPod levels of selling controllers for mobile. If Nintendo really pokes their head in like that, this could potentially be huge. I don't want to overstate it, but it feels big to me.
And it is easy to look at this from the other side and say, well, what are you talking about, Scott? A freaking, head of a department, a general manager said, we're looking at something. Why is that news? The reason why that's news and why it's got Scott and other people so excited is Nintendo never says anything about anything. So the fact that he even acknowledged the idea of looking into an analog controller is huge for the people who follow Nintendo closely, because they're like, wow, he actually said a thing, like he admitted that they were even thinking about analog controllers.
Yeah.
He immediately, it's almost like he backpedaled, like, oh crap, I've said too much, because he immediately said, well, maybe physical controllers are just never going to work, and we're fine with that too. So we're looking into ways to make sure that your smartphone device control can be done without that as well. So without saying it, I think he summed up the problem here, which is we would love to have those physical controllers, but it's not as easy as it looks, because how do you hold the screen and the controller at the same time? Do you have to plug it in and make it kind of like a 3DS kind of situation? And is it going to fall off? And is it janky? And so if they can't figure that out, they're not going to put out something substandard. That's the subtext that I read.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that is the one kicker, because you right now MiFi controllers are controllers you use for Android and iOS devices, and there's so much new support for this stuff, so it's actually a really good time for this. But one of the problems is if I want to play on my phone, I got to kind of put my phone somewhere, and the best controllers are separate devices. They're running wirelessly and non-connected to your device. That doesn't feel like a Nintendo solution. And you can say a lot of things about Nintendo's weird solutions over the years, but for the most part, they are very interested in end-user experience. They know their base better than anybody. And even if they made these controllers just for games they produced, it would be a huge selling point. But I don't know how many of us want to clamp a phone into a plastic, shell or encasement. And I don't think too many of us love the idea of propping it up somewhere and trying to look at it while we use a free controller. So there are a lot of questions to be answered, some of which they can't control. Nintendo doesn't control this hardware. And in fact, the hardware is so diverse outside of the Apple ecosystem. When you talk just about Android, you're talking about a huge number of possibilities. So they're almost getting into like the PC peripheral business in a weird way if they do this.
Now, I've got a ticket to Crazy Town to sell you here.
All right, go.
I think it was Miyamoto who said, and probably at the same meeting, if I'm remembering it correctly, he said something about virtual reality and Nintendo. And again, it was that same thing where if you don't follow Nintendo and you read what he said, it's like, well, he just admitted that virtual reality exists. What's the big deal? But the fact of Nintendo ever saying anything about virtual reality is a huge significance from a company that doesn't ever say anything about anything. What if what they're looking at, and I'm not saying this will ever hit the light of day, but what if what they're looking at is, what if our Nintendo apps that we're making for mobile work with a Gear VR type situation? What if we create our own virtual reality thing? You put your phone in it like a Gear VR, and then you can play the Nintendo apps in a virtual reality simulation, and we have a controller for that. Then your viewpoint is independent of your controller, so you don't have that 3DS issue that we have to design around, but you also will be able to get the benefits of physical buttons.
That's interesting. I'm going to say, for the record, I don't think that's that crazy. I also think it sounds like a way that they could kind of create a new Nintendo ecosystem that kind of equals that of consoles. And what I mean by that is, what is the phone but the screen? It's the screen. It happens to have a bunch of motion control and stuff built into it, but they all do now. That's kind of standard. So if you've got a phone that's relatively modern and to some sort of minimum spec, whatever that may be, plopping that inside of an adjustable headset to fit various phones or whatever, having a Nintendo piece of hardware in your hands, a Nintendo piece of hardware on your head, and the only other piece of investment is the display, like, oh, I don't know, a television like we do with consoles, that seems like it's kind of totally in their business model. Like, it already works in that space. I know it's a little more nuanced than that, but not any old TV works with a modern console either. So
I mean, they could use Pokemon Go in that situation, right? It's perfect. Yeah, they've already got an app that they're associated with to do that. Captain Jack even has a name for it, Virtual Boy 2.0.
Oh, no. I mean, that's one thing that they're going to have to always run away from, is the ghost of Nintendo past, and that will always be a weird mark on the VR history. But if they could do something cool and have it be, well received, inexpensive, something that works well for the masses, the most possible phones, I like your idea. In fact, I'm not going to say that it's crazy or out there. I think there's some possibility to that.
Researchers at the Institute of Micro and Nanosystems Technology in Norway have created a 1 millimeter wide replica of the original Pac-Man maze using nanostructures. Now, before you say these graduate students and researchers should be fired, or you say this is crazy cool, but what's it good for? They populated the maze with euglena and ciliates and their predators rotifers, and say that rather than just having a plain flat petri dish in which to observe them, they have a more realistic environment with walls and channels, and this gives them a better set of data coming from these little nano characters, these nano creatures, as opposed to the flat plane of a petri dish. So my guess is, and I haven't read this anywhere, but my guess is they said, well, this flat petri dish doesn't really give us a real world application. Let's build some barriers. Let's build some obstacles for them to get around. And by golly, if one of them didn't say like, well, let's just make it a Pac-Man maze, why not?
I think it's the greatest thing ever. I really do. When science crosses the beams with pop culture, we all win, man. It's great, because what did this do? This is not only cool in its own right, and not only is it scientifically sound, and the way that they're establishing the rules of this all makes sense. It's all good. But then they're tying it to something we all are familiar with, that we all love, and suddenly science is less of this thing a bunch of MIT grads do, and it's something we can all go, that's cool. I want to learn more about why these things are chasing each other. Like, I think that's awesome. So more of this, please. Here's the big question. Will next year the Miss Pac-Man version of the Petri dish be better?
Can't wait.
Definitive version of Pac-Man.
Looking forward to that. Hey, thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. We had Abatuela Condolci in there today, Steve I.O., Loki Robert, TM204, and more. Be one of them. Even if you don't have stories to submit, get in there and vote on the ones that have been submitted at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. That's a look at the top stories. Let's get to Snapchat. New feature called Memories will let you save personal moments to Snapchat's servers. So rather than downloading them to your camera roll like you can do now, you'll be able to save them to the server and not take up any space on your phone. If you choose to save a picture or video to Memories, you can then find it later by swiping up from below the camera screen. You'll be able to search by keyword So there's some image recognition going on in here, as I mentioned. Saved memories can even be reshared in my stories. They'll show up with a little frame and timestamp to indicate it's an older pic or video. So maybe on somebody's birthday, you can show last year's birthday party or something like that. You can also create a new story to send to friends from your memories, and you can send it to friends as a message. You could move snaps and stories to a new area called My Eyes Only if you want to save them. But if you're showing your memories to someone else, maybe you don't want them to stumble across particular snaps that you want to save. That's what My Eyes Only is for, and it's protected by a pin. The whole memories feature is rolling out to select users over the next month or so.
I think I may have gotten something today. But
Did you really?
Yeah, it may have been just a preparatory sort of update. Let me check.
A lot of people get updates, Scott. That doesn't mean you're at the
here it is. Introducing
person.
Memories. Memories is a new way to
stay. No kidding.
Yes, man. I got it. I haven't tried any of that yet or messed with it. My only question about any of this, Tom, and we're going to talk about other things to do with this, but just a question about this update. I don't know why there's an advantage to me putting them in the cloud versus just on my phone. Or is that me? Is that the old I need to collect all my music on my hard drive guy talking?
You still can do that. Right?
Yeah.
You can still save it. What this does is says, if you've only got a 16 gigabyte phone, well, maybe that's going away. I don't know. The rumor is iPhone's going to go 32 gigs. But let's say you don't want to just store them all yourself. You can keep them up in Snapchat, and it's easier. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to go, wait, which phone did I save that on? Because I changed phones, and did it sync over? They're all in one place.
All right. Well, that makes sense. I think that could be useful. However, what's more interesting about this whole story and about this update and about Snapchat generally, not to mention all of its competitors, is this is no longer that sneaky app only 14-year-olds know about that's super obscure and is the rumored pervert app so that everybody can just share naked pictures of themselves, and parents beware, Snapchat's going to get you. That feels like they have figured out that that's no longer their demographic, or at least that demographic is aging, and older people are coming down to it and meeting it someplace, and they're introducing features that we want, things like better control over the actual images and data that we have. What is going on over there? I feel like Snapchat is, I wouldn't say growing up, because I don't mean it in a pejorative, but they're taking steps and doing things to slowly
they're
become
evolving.
the mainstream app they want us all to use.
I think it's really interesting because Snapchat is definitely pivoting, right? They used to be like, hey, we're the place where nothing ever gets saved. And today they became, hey, we're the place where you can save everything. But there's an essential quality to this, which is you control what gets saved. You can still send the snap that will disappear after the first 2 viewings of it. That hasn't changed. They're very careful not to take things away from people. They are facing more and more competition out there as well, so they need to keep evolving like this. There's an app called Snow, which is owned by Naver in South Korea, the same company that owns Line, the messaging app, that essentially is a copy of Snapchat. They have a few different features, but it is eating Snapchat's lunch in Asia in a large part because it can operate in China, and Snapchat cannot yet operate in China. So Snapchat is moving to this format as older people start to use the service. And I find this balancing act that they're doing interesting because, Scott, they started as the company that was saying, you're tired of posting pictures on Facebook, forgetting they're there, and then ruining your job interview because they find a drunken picture of you on Facebook. Use Snapchat. That was the draw of it, is like, you won't have to worry about it. You can share funny pictures and not worry about the consequences later. Now, that makes me wonder, what is the new frustration that the new Snapchat can take advantage of? Because stay with me here. Snapchat did that, but didn't stay to it. Chat roulette, which apparently still exists, just stayed with like, hey, it's ephemeral and you never know who you're going to get. And they never evolved. Snapchat said, well, we'll start with that ephemerality, but then we'll add stories. And now we're going to add memories. And so we're building on what we think the users want. That's the way to start, is what is that frustration that needs to be solved?
Yeah, and the question is, what frustration do I have? See, I'm trying to ask myself this. What frustration do I have right now that I'd like to be solved? Well, one of them is, if I'm a Snapchat user, and I am, how come I can't pull stuff off my photo album and put it up there? Stuff I just took as a random snap because I had to hurry up and take a picture with the default camera, and then later want to use it.
Welcome to Memories, which can now access your camera roll.
Yes, and see, so what they've done is they've said, hey, Scott, you're well over the demographic of the people we used to appeal to the most. In fact, what percentage are we in? We're in the of
38% of 25 to 34-year-olds, but we're above that. 14% of smartphone users age 35 and old.
Yeah, there are always outliers. Today, Tom and I are outliers, but still, those are significant numbers. This ComScore shows 14% of smartphone users ages 35 and older use Snapchat. That's up 2% in April from April.
Well, let me reframe the question, because what you're telling me is exactly the answer to Snapchat saying, okay, how do we get more people to use it? Well, let's do the thing that the older people like, which is what Instagram and Facebook already offer, which is the ability to store some photos and share your memories. All right, that's getting us as we wander in and ruin the party. What do you think? What is that frustration that nobody is doing? Because all Snapchat's doing is saying, well, in other services do this, so now we're going to do it in our own way. But when Snapchat started, nobody did ephemeral sharing. And it's one of the reasons that older people didn't understand it. They're like, well, no, social networking is about sharing permanently. You store all of your things on Facebook. You store all of your things on Instagram. Why would I want to use a service where my picture just goes away and it never gets stored? And the answer was, I am frustrated by that permanency. I don't want to have to think about stuff being stored. I want to not have to think about that perfect Instagram shot. I just want ephemerality. What is the current frustration that nobody actually has an answer for that would be the next app's way to build a business?
Well, I mean, if I'm gonna throw one out, I'd say the toxicity, negativity, abusive, harassing behavior that you see online. That would be number one for me.
And I asked people on Twitter, I asked people on Facebook the same question, and that was definitely, if not the most common, tied for the most common. The other was algorithmic. They're like, the algorithm doesn't show me the right things. And I'm not sure if that is perception or reality, to be honest. But yeah, I agree with you. I think annoying, abusive, harassing postings is an area that Twitter's been trying to solve, Facebook's been trying to solve. They all solve it to varying degrees of effectiveness, but nobody's cracked it.
No, but I would argue that Snapchat, well ahead of the game, maybe this is their big win, because way ahead of all of this, they created a more personal, one-on-one, say what you want about how it was being used by some people, but that kind of temporary message, temporary photo, we are just having a quick exchange and then it's over with. They established that as their flag in the ground. Come forward now, and they're adding features that all these other services have, yet they're retaining that as a core value. At least it seems to be. So maybe that's how they win, and that's how this frustration gets answered. They bring enough features that we all love and want out of all these other services, but somehow still are able to take away that layer of interaction. I think of it like Hearthstone. Anybody who plays the video game Hearthstone, they don't let you chat with each other. All you can do is send very vague emotes that are built into the game, like well done, or thank you, or welcome.
Sorry,
yeah, actually they took that one out.
No, they took that out. They took that out because that started to be used that way.
Exactly. So they were smart, I think, in a way, in creating a system that still encouraged everybody to play against one another, but took away that.
Well, so there's your opportunity, Scott. What you're saying is, well, Snapchat avoids the interaction, right? You can interact with your friends directly, but you can't interact in public, and so you just don't have that issue. That's the opportunity. What about somebody who's like, no, but I want to be able to interact in public like Twitter, but I don't want it to have the risk of turning into a troll fest. Yeah. I'm not saying I have the answer of how to do that, but if somebody can come up with that, if somebody can do what Snapchat did and said, well, then you make the social network this way. And I guess Yik Yak sort of tried to do that by saying, well, you're just anonymous. Nobody ever knows who you are. It's just based on location. But that had the opposite effect, and it just became a cesspool. And
yeah, it got real bad. So today you sent me a link to a live Facebook video you did. And I thought, you know what? I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to make one. So I made one in response to it, put it up on the page. Immediately filled up real quick. It had 100-something people in there, and I was asking them, okay, so what do you see? I haven't used this format yet. It feels like Periscope, blah, blah, blah. And big chat room scrolling by, and I thought to myself, man, I'm glad I have nice followers, or else this could be real ugly in here. And Facebook's not going to step forward and say, by default, chat rooms are off. Twitch will never do. Chat rooms are off by default. They're not even going to give us the option to do that as a user. We have to go and turn it off manually if we don't want to look at that stuff. Same with YouTube, same with everybody else. They are all afraid to do what you're saying because to them that is just a stone too far, and it cuts off the whole point of being social. And again, we're back to that argument about all the people all the time. And it seems like Snapchat has taken a very different tone and approach and said, no, less people some of the time, when you wanna, kind of how you wanna.
Okay, but what is the problem with that, right? Because you can roll this back and say, well, Facebook solved the problems of MySpace, and that's why it became more successful. But Snapchat solved the problems of Facebook, which is why it became successful. So what's the problem with Snapchat?
Oh man, if do you want to take user interface out of the equation?
Yeah, that's just because we're old.
I don't know, man. It's about as intuitive as.
I think it's that lack of reaction. Like I don't get the jolt of being able to have a back and forth, and yet that's one of the benefits of it, right? So is there a way to swing that pendulum back somehow? I'm really convinced that that's the area of opportunity, and maybe it's public or talk show where they have curated chats where only certain people are chatting in the main thing, but you can be elevated into it out of the massive comments that are going on to the side. I don't know. Maybe
well, in a way, they've already kind of done this. They've said, all right, look, it's a private thing, and if you want to follow somebody, you have to go manually add them. But if you want to, you can. So people can watch DJ Khaled and watch him all day doing crazy things. And I don't know how many millions of people.
Yeah, but I can't talk back and forth with him in public.
Well, that's true. There is no back and forth. Yeah, you're right. It's more of a broadcast thing, I suppose.
Which is fine. I'm not saying it's a bad thing for Snapchat. I'm just saying, like, but if I want to do this other thing.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
I like. There's this app Public. I know you're doing some stuff on Public.
Yeah, that's what I was just mentioning. Public or talk show.
Yeah. Public's great because Public seems to have some of these ideas, like these ideas of saying maintain privacy, maintain a lack of toxicity, have some moderation tools, have it be quick and easy and fast, make this public on the web. They seem like they've kind of got the right ideas. How that all susses out, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But maybe there's something in, I don't know, like wisdom of the crowds. I don't believe in that anymore as much as I used to, and curation to some degree I think is a good idea. And people to complain that they want just raw feed.
Maybe it's machine learning.
Yeah, maybe that's
it's machine learning that can tell when a comment is trolly and just stops it from showing up.
Somebody needs to call what is it, Mood, whoever it is they bought. Mood Stocks.
Yeah. Mood Stock or Magic Pony on Twitter. They're doing image recognition though. All right. Well, if you guys have thoughts about this, I'm not saying we have the answer. I'm not sure there is an answer, but feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. Our pick of the day is something I saw that came out earlier this week from Double Twist called Cloud Player. Now, Cloud Player has been out for a while. It allows you to play your music from whatever source you want. It could be Google Drive, it could be Dropbox, it could be OneDrive, could be the device that you're running Cloud Player on. The Android app for Double Twist's Cloud Player can now create playlists. And the songs can be from multiple different sources. You could have some songs stored on Dropbox, some on Google Drive, and some on your phone, and they could all be together in one playlist. You might want to check that out, especially if you're an Android user. It's Cloud Player from Double Twist. So you don't have to pay for some cloud locker to get the approval for your music. Just put it all in Dropbox, play it from there.
Yeah,
send your picks to us, folks. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. I'm going to read this first email, Scott, if you'll read the next one.
Sure.
First one comes from Joshua, who wrote in with a video that he has created demonstrating one way the Onyx mobile backpack can be used. Joshua is developing the Onyx mobile backpack. He says, the final backpack is more refined and has more features. Let me know what you think. I've received some very positive and encouraging feedback from Microsoft. Coincidentally, they launched the Surface Pro Xbox One deal for students, which will run throughout my Kickstarter campaign. And his Onyx mobile backpack is a Surface tablet combined with an Xbox One in the backpack with the battery so that you can play the Xbox on the go.
Whoa. I kind of would like one. Look at that.
I bet if you talk nice to Joshua, he might be able to hook you up.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. So wait. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see.
So you have the Xbox latched into the backpack. There's batteries in there as well. And then you pull up the Surface up off the top, and boom, you're playing Xbox.
That's pretty great. That's super, super cool. I hope he died. Yeah. And the fact that he gets feedback from Microsoft probably tells you that you're sort of onto something there, dude. changing the way we portably game. Our next email comes from Sam Lang-Bartels. Lang-Bartels is how he says to say it. I love that name. Keep it up. What would be the benefits and fallbacks of BB selling out to Google or Apple and continuing to make our devices under one of them, or making their devices under one of them? Creating a business-class smartphone running iOS as a subsidy of Apple and rolling BB Messenger into iMessage for a more secure and encrypted messaging service. The same can be said for Google, possibly more. So because BB already has Google phones, BB Messenger could potentially give apps like Slack a run for their money in the right hands. That's from Sam, the host.
So when Sam says BB, he means BlackBerry, obviously.
Oh yeah, I keep saying BB. I meant BlackBerry. That's
that's the way he wrote it, so that's fine. You're being true to his composition there. But I don't think Apple ever buys BlackBerry. I don't think if they did, for some reason, buy BlackBerry, that they would have a business class version of iPhone. I think they consider the top level iPhone a business class phone already. I don't think it's a crazy idea, though, that BlackBerry might sell its handset business to somebody. I don't think it would be Apple, but John Chen keeps going on and on about how his company is an enterprise security company, about secure messaging. Now, I don't think they sell BlackBerry Messenger, but at some point they may say, you know what, we just don't want to make handsets anymore. Microsoft buys failed handset businesses. Maybe they'll pop in and buy this. I don't know. I bet Satya Nadella has learned that lesson that Steve Ballmer taught him, and they won't do that. But yeah, I mean, BlackBerry wants to be a services company. They want to be a cloud services company, and the handset business is just meant to sort of advertise that, which is why they don't care about doing Android phones versus BlackBerry OS phones. Are like, hey, if BlackBerry OS phones showcase our services better, then great, we'll continue to do that. But John Chen says, look, I just want to make a profitable business. At some point, he may decide that the best way to make a profitable business is to divest himself of the handsets.
Well, the best comparison to this for me is probably IBM and Lenovo when they sold the ThinkPad line to them. When they were trying to get out of, hey, we're IBM and we make consumer products, to we don't want to do that anymore and we're strictly R&D and all the other things they do now, that made a lot of sense. Lenovo picked that stuff up. They were able to run with it, do really well with it. That is still a very popular line of computers. They've since expanded, and all of that stuff is true. It's different here, though, because you're facing a market that is so entrenched in iOS and Android, and to have anything else doesn't seem as valuable. I mean, I think Microsoft thought maybe they were onto something as kind of a last-ditch third wing effort to compete in this new crazy mobile space by picking up Nokia the way that they did. But that turned out to be a big failure. So in the shadow of that failure, did just Satya Nadella learn a lesson. I think the entire industry learned a lesson. And this is a real hard sell. I don't think anybody's ready to pony up the kind of cash they would want for that sort of thing, and then carry it forward in the way that Lenovo did with ThinkPads, and other companies do this all the time. I just think that market is like the genie's out of that bottle, and it's going to be real hard to stuff it back in.
BlackBerry would be more likely to sell their enterprise services to Microsoft. Microsoft would be very interested in buying BlackBerry Messenger, BlackBerry Enterprise Server, I would think, were that for sale, but that is the business. And I don't think John Chen is at that point yet with BlackBerry to say, well, let's just sell to somebody else. Although anybody comes up with a big enough number, anybody will sell.
It's just in such a weird place. I feel, and I know it's weird to feel bad for corporations, but I feel like BlackBerry just, I don't know, it's like a thief in the night. It just kind of came, they were rad, something else came along, and no one cares now. And that's a weird place to be in.
Well, this has also been it has been a weird place to be in, except in the good way. Thank you, Scott Johnson, for joining us. What do you got going on to tell folks about before we get out of here?
Oh, goodness. There's 1,000 things. I created a coloring book, which may sound strange to some, but I took a bunch of my art from the Extra Life collection of comics I've been doing for the last 12 or 13 years and put a very small, inexpensive coloring book up online so that people can get it if they want it. So if you have kids or you just want to color some art, it's very therapeutic for adults as well. That's the big thing right now. You can go on over to frogpants.com/store. They're available now. Do check those out. And I never mentioned this, but don't forget to check Tom and I out this weekend, Friday night, 5 p.m. Mountain, for an episode of Current Geek. We do that every week, so come on back for that.
Yeah, we got some good guests happening thanks to Hammond is bringing them in. Thank you for your support of the Daily Tech News Show. We are entirely funded by our listeners. If you're willing to be one of those people who supports us, dailytechnewsshow.com/support is the place to go. If you want to get co-executive producer credit, access to our analyst Slack, or more, head to patreon.com/DTNS. And we cannot thank enough everybody who already supports the show. If you want just the headlines each day, maybe in addition to Daily Tech News Show, you might want to subscribe to our new show, Daily Tech Headlines, and get the tech news of the day in less than 10 minutes. DailyTechNewsShow.com/subscribe is the place to go. Just scroll down below the DTNS links. You'll find links to Daily Tech Headlines, or you can search for Daily Tech Headlines in iTunes or your favorite podcast app. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. Catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Justin Robert Young. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nice.
Nice little episode there.
Show titles.
Yeah, what do we got?
Don't have a canary. Temporary storage is temporary. I don't remember doing that. ... The Ghost of Nintendo.
Don't have a canary?
You know, like the canary warrant.
Oh, we so barely briefly mentioned that. I didn't even remember it. Okay.
Oh, this is good. Are you going to catch them all in AR? AR, are you going to catch them all?
Okay.
From Dark Redeemer. I'm going to vote for that one. Virtual Boy 2.0. Watch where your Pokemon going.
It's good effort, Dr. Payne. I like it. To Pokemon and serve. It's good effort too.
An image is worth 1,000 searches. I think they meant Snapchat, but they misspelled it. Snapchat decides older people forget enough things on their own.
Facebook with unintended benefits.
That's actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I'm looking for more. I'm looking for more Snap. Most of it's Nintendo related. Rope Fears in a Maze, to Pokemon and Serve.
I kind of like aging Snapsters too.
Aging Snapsters.
That's a pretty good one.
Yep.
I vote for that one.
All right.
I like that one too.
So motion carried. Aging Snapsters will be the title.
The Honorable Tom Judge Merritt, please stand for his...
My gavel's out of reach.
Oh, yay, oh, yay.
I'll use this bat instead. Oh, yay.
I love that, oh, yay.
No, man, I am fascinated with this idea of like... Snapchat came along and everybody's like, why would anyone want that? So what? I'm waiting for that next thing. And that's why it's so hard to think of is because the reaction is going to be, why would anyone want that? But it's going to be brilliant, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
And it'll be the thing that not stops, but limits abuse, right? And so I keep trying to think like, okay, what Snapchat did was said, hey, you don't like permanent images? Well, none of the images are permanent. And so it's like, hey, you don't like your public chats being chastised? Well, none of your points can be chastised. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's a social network where no one can reply.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but is it a social network at that point?
Sort of. I mean, you could follow people.
Yeah, but...
Well, whatever you call it, though. Maybe that's it.
What if they did it so... all those things are automatically timed out and they're blocked, but you can unlock them. Like you get to choose to selectively. Okay, this
like
one
you
is.
You can approve the replies to your, but then you still see them. That's still.
Oh, no. That's the thing though. After a couple hours, they automatically disappear unless you proactively go there.
But then you have to go look at them to approve them.
Yes, but.
So then you're still going to be seeing the harassing posts.
Yeah. Maybe that's just, you know what though, you're trying to fix humanity, Tom.
Yeah, but you could say the same thing about Facebook. You could say people are like, I hate it that I took a photo. Well, don't put the photo on Facebook. That's the solution, right?
Well,
Yeah.
But Snapchat figured out another solution that let people still post the photos, but without the consequences.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. How like whoever what you're describing is the next like if someone can solve that riddle,
Yeah.
they're huge. Like that's an enormous accomplishment. I don't know how you do it though.
Solve stupidity? What?
Yes,
that,
solve
yeah.
stupidity, please. Someone.
For the children, please. For all the children's.
Yeah, please. For all, can we please think of your daughter's future here for him?
I just want someone to figure a way for us to ascend into non-corporeal beings like they do in Star Trek
I
when
think
they've
that's
evolved.
a couple steps down, but sure. Yeah, I'm for that. I mean,
But at
maybe
the same,
we figure out how to have a conversation in public without abuse first, and then we can work on ascending into non-corporeal beings.
I'm with you there.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being too rigid.
maybe.
I
mean, that's where the non-corporeal aspect comes in.
Sure.
They're very fluid shaped.
Maybe you can't solve one without the other.
Listen, all I know is when you become non-corporeal, you become insufferably arrogant. So maybe they go hand in hand. And so maybe a little.
If Star Trek has taught me anything.
It is. It's just very turn down your nose.
Oh, SoundCloud.
What happened in SoundCloud?
Not SoundCloud. Audacity. Sorry, I said the wrong product and.
The audacity for Audacity.
Audacity of SoundCloud.
That sounds like a title for a show.
Yeah, it's not bad. Hold on to that one.
What? The audacity of Audacity?
No, the audacity of SoundCloud.
Each week we talk about another file that we used in SoundCloud. You edit it in Audacity.
See, you've already got a show all set. You're good.
I am exporting. Yeah, it was just Audacity. If you ever change anything with the output device while Audacity is running, it can't recover.
Oh, right.
And so I just had to close it and reopen it. It wasn't a big deal.
I hate that.
It is annoying.
It's free, and I shouldn't complain, but still hate it.
No, the non-corporeal cannot be body shamed, but they can be intellectually shamed, or perhaps.
It might make the whole trolling thing worse, actually.
Potentially.
You know, Dark Redeemer has an interesting proposition here. He's like, many people have solved idiocy over the years. We just keep creating bigger idiots.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe our idiots are not as idiotic as the previous generation, but they have to work harder to be idiots.
What if we're just looking at it all wrong? What if the idiots really do serve a purpose in society, and we're not seeing it because we're too close to it? Like if we step back.
I think that they do. They serve as all sorts of great examples of what I don't want to do.
Well, yes, and I think the problem is they're over-amplified. It's one thing when a village has an idiot that everyone can agree that's the village idiot. There's only one of them. But then when you have the internet, suddenly every village idiot in the world can all talk at once to you. And so you've got thousands of village idiots speaking to you at once in multiple different voices.
So basically, idiots are exponentially increased in idiocy with the
I don't know
internet.
if it's exponential or not. I haven't done the math. But yeah, the spirit of your remark is true.
Yeah.
Maybe it's logarithmically.
It
right?
could be. I don't know. I don't want to put a label on it.
But it's just everyone has the same voice now, so you can't.
Well, no, it's that thing where like there was one person that hated you in a town. It was easy to avoid that person. When you're online and there's millions of towns, each with one person that hates you, it's harder to avoid them because there's so much more of them.
Well,
So what you're saying is the downside of the global village is just the global idiots.
It's the scale, right? It's the same problem with spam. It's the access. All of a sudden, low percentage numbers can have high percentage effects. Right?
yeah.
Yes.
The whole thing depresses me some days, and other days
Well,
I go,
yeah, it's depressing because if you feel like everyone's against me when you get piled on.
right.
But the fact of the matter is, even with like dozens of people piling on you on YouTube comments or wherever it is, that's still an incredibly small percentage of the world. It's just most people aren't saying anything. And there's this other effect of people who would say something nice see a bunch of negative comments and just don't post because they don't want to get into an argument.
Right.
Some people, wasn't there that one guy who was arrested? Like he was like it turned out that he was like a super internet troll, but he was like different people in different ways.
Oh,
And
it was an
sometimes
online persona.
yeah, and sometimes he was like very progressive, and other times he would be very right-wing reactionary. Like he was all those things, but really his base desire was just to elicit reaction, and so he was the troll. The troll.
Yeah, and some people just like to get a response.
Some people like to watch
Some
the
people
world
just
burn.
they just want to, yeah, exactly. They want to watch
That's
the world.
That's what Batman taught me, or the Joker taught me.
I
Like,
think
you know,
very
who
few
told-
people are the Joker.
Who really taught us that, though? That was,
Yeah, he's a pretty shrewd guy
Mhm.
for being clinically insane.
The Joker will be the coach of this year's Arkham Angels in the FSL.
Oh, nice.
oh,
Is
look
he
at that,
coach?
really?
Yeah, I actually, now that I say that,
Should write
is he
that
coach
down.
or is he owner? He might be owner.
I was excited for
Maybe.
your new season of that, I guess.
Yeah, no, he's the owner. The coach will be Edward Nigma, who you might know better as Riddler.
Here's a riddle. Take the ball up the left.
One of the problems with their strategy is when they meet with the coach, he just gives them riddles that they have to solve to figure out what their game plan should be.
It's like, why don't you just tell me? Why don't you give me a straight answer?
I love that idea.
Captain Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley, big main. Dr. Harleen Francis Quinzel, Selena Kyle on offense, Vera Klopas on defense, Julian Gregory Day at utility, and Dr. Jervis Tetch on the bench. It's going to be a good season
Wow.
for the Arkham Angels at FSLTonight.com.
I believe in them.
Have you anybody reading Dark Knight 3? Or not the Dark, or the Frank Miller's?
Oh, no, I haven't. I did not like 2 at all.
2 sucked.
It
2
was
really
bad.
sucked. It was rambly and wasn't coherent. This third one is very, very Miller-esque. Like, it goes back to a very simple, straightforward story that's cool. Like, it's fun to read. That's the thing, is comics aren't as fun to read anymore.
No, well, it depends on the comic. Yeah. You know?
Well, let me just say, most Marvel DC comics, for me, have been very tedious to read.
Yeah.
Within the past,
I've been a lot
6
more
years.
indie. I've been reading more Valiant comics and more.
Valiant, I'm surprised. I picked up what's the one that they came out like a couple of years ago? Divinity.
Oh, Divinity's great.
I was like, wow. I remember Valiant being kind of like also all over the place back in the 90s, and I was like, wow, this is actually real put together.
They have something like 30 of this year's Eisner Awards are Valiant Comics nominees. It's crazy. They're like kicking butt.
They know how to tell a story, and I think that's unfortunately
That's the key.
the key. And a lot of people are more into like, well, how can I franchise this into a movie, TV adaptation, merchandising, something.
There's definitely that problem for sure.
Merchandising.
That's both the Schwartz, no merchandising. May the Schwartz be with you.
Ludicrous.
Dun, dun, dun.
I haven't seen that movie in a while. We watched it for Film Sack, but it feels like forever ago.
Film sack. It sounds like such a dirty name, but it's not.
No, it's perfect in that way. It sounds like dirty, but it's not. It's Film Sack. It's part of your jingle now.
The only thing I read from DC now was the Green Lantern Oblivion. I like their ensemble pieces, and this is the thing about superhero comics generally is I like them to take place from into a far distant universe or alien landscape, because the more they try to make it seem like it's contemporary society,
Mm-hmm.
it just gets a little tedious because then you start like, well, that's not as believable at all because no one's going to react like that. As opposed to, oh, look, the bird people of whatever planet are being angry at us. We better send the Green Lanterns. It's a little more suspension of disbelief.
The bird people of whatever planet is my favorite original Star Trek series storyline.
Well, bird people, reptilian people, we're the other, insect people. Those are the three main alien tropes.
The bird people of whatever planet.
Like, think about it. The Thanagarians, they're bird people. The Shi'ar in Marvel Comics, they're bird people.
Mm-hmm.
Princess from Voltron.
She's not a bird person. She was pretty hot. She was a hottie.
It's got the wing.
Do you watch any of the? Or did we talk about this last week?
I watched the first two, and I have to say, as much of a Voltron fan as I was as a kid, I'm just not sucked in. And Brian is. Part of it is he's watching it with his daughter, so I think that just makes it more awesome.
That's what I did too.
I watched it with my daughter, and I also was not engrossed into it.
Your daughter is quite a bit younger than Scott and Brian's daughter.
It's true.
Yeah.
Perhaps I could savor the agony of watching that show. I wanted to really like it, and it's just, I don't know what it is.
Well,
maybe
same here.
It might be like if they do a second season, like things get better. Like, I don't know, just the stories just aren't very interesting to me. Like, I don't care. Shoot the lion, shoot Voltron, blow up the castle, build a suburb.
Okay, I'm not that angry about it.
Strip mall. I don't care.
I'm not nearly that angry, it turns out.
Welcome to Voltron Square, a Westfield center.
Yes.
In the leg of the mall, you'll find the Wetzel's Pretzels.
You mean these robot lions together form a larger robot? Awesome.
It's, when you're a kid, that's all that mattered.
Yeah.
Now you're
maybe that's part of it too. I'm more of a Battle of the Planets fan than Voltron, but I like them both. So.
Battle of the Planets was cool, but I didn't realize until I'm older now how incredibly, because when I read the original Japanese comics that they translate, they were still black and white, right? There was no color. It's not until you watch a cartoon and like the uncensored Sandy Frank version, which was censored, how incredibly violent that show is. It's bloody. It's
it's awesome. It's great.
Yeah, it totally was. But I loved it. Oh,
all right. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks again to Patrick Beja for hosting yesterday. Thanks to Aaron Carson for guesting. Thanks to Roger Chang for producing without me yesterday. And we'll all be back tomorrow except for Patrick and Aaron and Scott.
Yeah. But